In the annals of drag racing, few can match the track record of King Kenny Bernstein, one of the most successful and innovative quarter-milers of all time. Through the decade of the 80s, Bernstein's shadow spread across the nitro funny car class, winning title after title and setting new standards for low time and high speed. In 1990, Bernstein brought the colors of the Budweiser King to drag racing's glamour class, Top Fuel. He opened the 1991 International Hot Rod Association season with a victory at the All-Pro Auto Parts Winter Nationals. Today, in legendary Thunder Valley, Bernstein faces the toughest field of the season. Fellow Texan Gene Snow, the two-time IHRA Top Fuel World Champion. From Delaware, Diesel John Carey, 250-mile-an-hour king of the 50-something Top Fuel pilots. And from Ohio, 1989 IHRA Top Fuel champion Pat Dakin, hoping to reclaim his world title. It's tire smoking time in Tennessee. ESPN, the world leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. Back in 1970, when Bristol International Dragway gave birth to the International Hot Rod Association, the premier event was the 6th annual Spring Nationals. Now, as IHRA enters its 21st season, the crown jewel of the series remains the Speed Pro Loctite Spring Nationals. Hello once again, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha. Welcome to a very hot day here in Thunder Valley. In its 27 iterations, the Spring Nationals have seen some great racing and some surprises, and today should be no different. Though the season has barely begun, we have midsummer conditions here in Bristol, Tennessee. And with me to tell us what all that means is ESPN drag racing analyst Ted Jones. Ted, what will this heat do to the racing?
This heat, in short, is going to slow the drivers down. They'll really struggle for speeds and ETs. Why? Because it makes for heavy air, or as the racer would say, there's no air. Now, add to that the inherent problem here at Thunder Valley, altitude. This track is just at 2,000 feet. And as you know, the higher up you go from the earth, the less oxygen content there is in the air. And oxygen is what they burn to make horsepower, Bob. So the drivers are definitely going to struggle to get the speeds up here today.
Well, to get us caught up on who's done best under the conditions thus far, let's get caught up with the third member of our broadcast team. Here's Brett Kepner.
Well, gentlemen, like you said, it's a scorcher here at Bristol, like always, and the heat is always a key to either winning or losing this event. And certainly no one knows that better than Kenny Bernstein. Keep in mind that while the Budweiser King Top Fuel dragster is certainly a strong threat in Top Fuel competition here this weekend, he certainly has had bad luck here in the past at Bristol. He's never won a national event here at Thunder Valley, regardless of whether he was in his funny car or his Top Fuel dragster. There are a lot of other drivers here who have had better luck and better experience dealing with these conditions than the man from California. In any case, Pro Modified should be equally interesting, as the nitrous cars have to battle these conditions as well. And only the supercharged entry of Randy Moore, the Tosti Asti Spumani Lamborghini, really has a different approach with its supercharger on top. That'll be interesting to watch. But, Bob, it's getting hotter as I speak out here. What are the weather stats?
Read 'em and weep, Brett. 90 degrees and getting hotter, 85% humidity. This is going to be one interesting afternoon. ESPN Speed World coverage of the IHRA Spring Nationals is brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q is one tough motor oil. By GMC Truck. It's not just a truck anymore. It's quality on the road. And by Smooth Bush Beer and easy drinking Bush Light. We'll be back with action from the Night of Fire from the IHRA Spring Nationals in Thunder Valley, Bristol, Tennessee.
Brett Bodine, one tough driver, talks about Quaker State, one tough motor oil.
At North Wilkesboro, that Carolina asphalt was hot enough to fry our King Racing Buick. Our engine was running hot, 240 degrees, and I had to keep pushing it over 8,000 RPM. Now that's when you start worrying about your oil's viscosity breaking down. But when the going got tough, the same Quaker State you can buy right off the shelf was tough enough to get me to the finish line first.
Quaker State is one tough motor oil.
GMC Truck, we make fuel economy a priority before a single truck is built. And our 1991 Sierra proves it. With four-wheel drive, get 16 city and 19 highway. And with two-wheel drive models, get an amazing 17 city and 22 highway. GMC Truck. It's not just a truck anymore. It's quality on the road.
So, did you break him, Raj?
Break him?
I own it. That horse and I are one. We achieved a special kind of oneness. Man and beast. Speaking the same language.
What's that mean? Means they'll be talking again tomorrow.
Eddie Cook puts his U.S. Bantamweight Championship on the line against Torch Vasquez. Tommy Duke Morrison, the real-life Rocky, is ready for a heavyweight clash. All on Top Rank Boxing, Thursday night live on ESPN.
Welcome back to Thunder Valley, Bristol, Tennessee, in the IHRA Spring Nationals. We'll pick up the action with the Budweiser Night of Fire final qualifying, and it began and ended quickly for Texan Eddie Hill, who blew the engine in his Top Fuel dragster when he tried to light the fire. This is a true example of hydraulicking at its highest degree, although we normally see that when they're running down the quarter mile. Fortunately, nobody hurt in that instance, or in this one. Watch the right lane. John Montecalvo of Santa Mauritius, New York, in pro stock qualifying, gets down to the timing lights, and then all hell breaks loose. Montecalvo sliding sideways, rolling the car. Now it's being drugged down the drag strip, or so it appears, by Doug Kirk, whom he was running on that qualifying attempt. At about 170 miles an hour, watch once again as John Montecalvo does a big pirouette. Montecalvo managed to qualify, remarkably enough, in the number 8 position because this crash is taking place on the shutdown. You see Montecalvo rolling over now. He's on top of the chute cords of Doug Kirk's Pro Stock car, and the car is literally being drugged down the shutdown area by Doug Kirk's car. Now, Kirk doesn't know this. He probably figures his parachute is giving him tremendous stopping power, Bob. Yeah, when you've got about 3,000 pounds of automobile on it. Notice the car tumbling. Here's the most vicious part of the crash, and this is mute testimony to the strength of these chassis. That car literally up on its nose and spinning around like a top as he continues down the shutdown area here at Thunder Valley. The door swinging open. Now you see the chute that's been deployed. Car turning around, facing back toward the starting line now. One would wonder, how can a driver come out of this unscathed? Well, one reason is that car was built by Jerry Bickle Race Cars out of Moscow Mills, Missouri. A vivid example of just how important the roll cage is to a driver. And there is John Montecalvo out of the car. The IHRA tech officials on the scene checking out everything that happened. There's Doug Kirk, who was involved in the incident, concerned about John's safety. The next day, Brett Kepner caught up with John.
John, obviously in that situation, you probably didn't have that much idea of exactly what was going on, but what do you think caused the situation?
Brett, I knew it was on a good pass. The car was going fast. I hit the parachute. I didn't feel the chute hit. At that time, I got on the brakes. I never drove a car with carbon fiber brakes. I think what happened is I panicked, got on the brakes a little bit too hard. They heated up, locked, and threw me around. Ordinary brakes would fade. These brakes seem to grab more as they get hot. Heard a lot of crashing, a lot of banging, and I was just wondering when it was all going to stop.
You said earlier when you got out of the car that you had braced yourself waiting to hit something. Did you realize that most of the spins were on the nose, or did it feel like barrel rolls to you?
Basically, it felt like barrel rolls. And yes, I was bracing. I didn't know if I was going to hit something solid. I was just wondering when it was going to stop.
Well, it's not often a race driver will say, hey, it was my fault. I just wasn't up to the equipment. But as Ted mentioned, John Montecalvo managed to qualify in our pro stock field. Of course, no Night of Fire would be complete without the jet cars, or in this case, the jet truck. Not your average international harvester cab over. Here comes Larry Parks with a cloud of smoke and flame. A big crowd pleaser. Won't see that on your nearby interstate anytime soon. And of course, the fireworks on this Budweiser Night of Fire winding up. Final round qualifying as we prepare for eliminations. And we'll be right back with quarterfinal action in Top Fuel. Stay with us.
I never saw you hit so well. I'm here in 3, you're here in 1. Ah, Bill.
Yeah, how'd you do, Jack?
In 3, out in 3. What are you doing? You're playing your best golf, and every time I look up, you're staring at TV. Saturday cartoons make you so good?
It's a special Golf Digest instructional video. The Golf Digest schools pulled 10 instant golf lessons from their 10 cassette collection.
Graphics, instruction, real professional advice, 10 instant lessons?
A half hour of the best stuff for a golfer.
It's priceless.
It's free.
Free?
With my subscription to Golf Digest.
Get a full year of Golf Digest for $19.77. Call 800-348-3300 now and get our free half-hour instructional video with your paid subscription. Call 800-348-3300 now.
The resurgent Dave Winfield of the Angels is showing he still has some pop left in his back. He'll face the home run power of Cecil Fielder and the Tigers live at 8 Eastern on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball.
Welcome back to Bristol, Tennessee, and a taste of the newest IHRA tradition, the Racers' Picnic.
Well, all of the racers' wives and girlfriends brought food, and they actually had a big cookout barbecue picnic right there in the pit area. There's Lisa Regenthal, who headed the whole thing up and made the project successful.
We move on to quarterfinal action now in Top Fuel. 4,500 to maybe 5,000 horsepower to the pavement if you're good at what you do. There is a look at Jack Ostrander from Pontiac, Michigan, the number 5 qualifier. He's got a tall order on his hands. Kenny Bernstein, qualified number 4, but always a threat.
Bernstein, ever the innovator. Look at the new ground effects package on that car. No doubt a carryover from his Indianapolis race car experience, Bob.
Dale Armstrong is the crew chief for Kenny Bernstein, and you said it, Ted. They are innovators. There is a look at Jack Ostrander backing in. Ostrander, an IHRA regular. Bernstein backing in the far lane. Notice the difference in height of those rear wings? That's a part of Kenny Bernstein's idea, to use the aerodynamic package, as you look at Jack Ostrander, to get that rear wing down and avoid blowovers. Bernstein lifts the wheels slightly as he launches, but he's got this one in the bag.
Kenny Bernstein, look at that. ET 518, 265, and a 0.8 reaction time. Kenny is back on top.
Our next matchup, the two-time world champion Gene Snow against the youngest man in Top Fuel, Tommy Johnson Jr. Jr. with problems. Gene Snow takes it.
Gene Snow with an impressive 5.27 at 265.
Boy, he may be on his way to meet Kenny Bernstein. Now here is John Carey, Diesel John from Delaware against Pat Dakin, who smokes and breaks right off the line.
Dakin shuts it down, an easy win for John Carey. Wow, impressive, a 5.33, 267. We've got a drag race.
And here comes Eddie the Thrill Hill, crew chief, Fuzzy Carter in the yellow hat, giving that motor a real good looking over after that huge explosion in qualifying.
Hill still qualified number 1 with a 5.21, 273 miles per hour. That figure, though, has been eclipsed now by Bernstein at that 5.18 mark.
Eddie's opponent will be a bit of a surprise, Robert Reel from Anaconda, California. And Eddie smokes the tires at half-track. Reel will get the biggest victory of his career.
Hill loses a blower belt also after smoking the tires, so Reel moves into the next round with a 5.46.
By virtue of the quicker ET, Kenny Bernstein will have lane choice against Robert Reel. Gene Snow will have lane choice against John Carey.
Stick around. It's going to get better before it gets worse. And y'all sit right there and enjoy it.
People are taking better care of themselves and their money. That's why they're spending more time at McDonald's today. For food and prices that are right for the times, served up with the kind of service that made McDonald's McDonald's. It's all part of getting more for your money. That's McDonald's today.
You know, working at AutoZone is more than looking up parts or ringing up sales. Most of all, it's listening. Because my customers know more about their cars than I'll ever know. They know every rattle by heart. I mean, that car is their baby. So when they've got a problem they're going to fix for themselves, I'm going to do my best to help them get whatever they need, no matter what it takes. Because people like that, they don't deserve anything less than the best I can give them.
Shift into high gear with ESPN, the leader in motorsports coverage. Blistering super speedway.
Mark Martin pulls alongside Dale Earnhardt, the crowd on his feet.
Grueling road courses. Innovative engineering. Our commitment continues with television's most extensive auto racing coverage. ESPN, the leader in motorsports.
Welcome back to Bristol, Tennessee in the IHRA Speed Pro Loctite Spring Nationals. Bob Barsha and Ted Jones with you. We're ready for pro modified action. Let's get down to the pits with Brett Kepner.
Well, here in Ronnie Sox's pit area, the car appears to be ready to go for the next round. But true to Ronnie's normal tradition, he likes to sit in the trailer and kind of psych himself up for the next round. And just before he went in, we heard him say something about needing a little magic to get by the next round.
That was Bill Kuhlman's Camaro, and we'll have more on him in just a moment. But now to the business of eliminations. First up, Wally Stroop, one of the quickest and fastest pro modifieds you'll find anywhere. And he will be going up against one of the most controversial cars in the series, Randy Moore's supercharged Tosti Asti Spumante Lamborghini. But right now, Stroop is the only guy at the starting line.
Well, they tell us that Moore is back in the staging lanes, and he's having a lot of trouble getting the car fired up. Mickey Lawson, the crew chief right now on the Stroop Lawson entry, motioning his driver to go up and stage. Now we see Moore as he pulls up into the water box, getting ready to make the burnout. However, we're probably having some heat buildup over there in the Stroop machine. He may well elect to stage and take the tree, Bob.
Now, there is a time limit. You have to get to the staging area, and it looks as though starter Jim Blakely is not going to let Randy Moore pull in, and Wally Stroop will have a walkover.
Stroop waited what he felt was a reasonable amount of time and takes an easy win at 7:14. Meanwhile, Moore will shut the car off.
Oh, and I'm sure there's going to be some discussion about that in the pit areas. Here is the defending Pro Modified champion, Tim McAmis, and he will be going up against the ageless wonder, Ronnie Sox.
Well, you know, Sox was sticking needles into Kuhlman's car. You better worry about this guy first. The defending world champ qualified number 4 in the field. Sox qualified number 5.
Opening the door on these door slammers in order to let some air in. There's a good look at young Tim McAmis. We mentioned earlier when you saw John Montecalvo's Pro Stock car crash that it was built in Jerry Bickle's race shop. This young man works in Jerry Bickle's race shop in Moscow Mills, Missouri. Young Tim McAmis.
Sox is ever, of course, out of Burlington, North Carolina, where he built up the legendary name of the Blonde Bomber, one of the fastest men on the 4-speeds back in the early Pro Stock days. Now has advanced into this exciting new Pro Modified category with a very popular car, a 1964 Comet, just like the car he started drag racing in.
Ronnie Sox is a little bit more gray than he is blonde these days, but he'll still nail you to the tree if you're not careful. Looks like McAmis got the jump on him. They are about even at half track. Now Ronnie Sox has the advantage, and he'll carry it to the finish.
Sox pulls it out with a 7:07, 198 miles per hour, and a 0:19 reaction time.
Now, we mentioned Bill Kuhlman. Here's the man, and Brett has more on his newest makeover.
At the beginning of the 1991 season, Bill Kuhlman debuted what may well have been the most controversial body style ever for a nitrous oxide-injected Pro Mod. The car was a Camaro radically altered almost to the point of no recognition whatsoever to the original body style. The main concern was the rear deck, a huge elevated rear deck spoiler that literally matched the roof in the car's height. But all that's changed here at Bristol. Bill Kuhlman has completely altered the rear of the car. And interestingly, he's gone back to square one. It's much more like a regular Camaro now, as you can see a back window, something the original didn't have. A much shorter rear deck spoiler and a recontoured fender line in the rear of the car makes this car look a lot more like a Camaro. But the big concern for Kuhlman was whether or not he was getting enough or even too much downforce. A lot of drivers seem to be thinking now that these huge rear deck spoilers on the Pro Mods may be creating too much of a load for the engine to pull without hurting itself down at the finish line. Only Kuhlman knows the answers. What was the main reason for making this change?
A combination of two things. One, I found out my car through the grapevine was the only car that was declared illegal for the next season. So I decided, well, if I'm going to do some work to the wing, I'll do it now. Secondly, we might have had so much downforce that it created undue strain on the engine in high gear. So the only way we were going to find out was tear it down and start all over.
And the big question is, at least in testing so far, has this change been worth it?
Well, it's like starting with a new car again, a whole new back half. I'll say this, we're not hurting engines now. And in recent races we've ran with the big boys again. So I think we're in the right direction.
Is there something else on this car that you think may have contributed to that same engine-damaging problem?
Not that we can pinpoint. The one thing that we're learning, which you know, I don't know any other way to say it, but the dyno doesn't go down the racetrack. Dyno testing is great, but the racetrack gives you that 200-mile-an-hour air, and that's something you can't get in a building.
Obviously, where aerodynamics are concerned, air management is everything, and this is no small revelation. If Coolman is right and this shorter wing is the way to go, there are an awful lot of pro-modified cars here at Bristol that are dead wrong. But Coolman isn't the only driver who has a brand new approach to rear-end aerodynamics. It was 1 year ago that Al Billis became the first Canadian to break 200 miles per hour in a pro-modified car right here at Bristol. But this year things are completely different for the now 207 mile per hour Canadian. This incredible rear wing on Billis's Camaro is a radical departure from what he started off the year. But indeed, this thing is designed by Max Schenkel, the GM aerodynamicist in Detroit, and originally designed for a GTP racer. The real interesting stuff is down underneath the car, where sensors feed a computer 200 bits of information per second based on this string pot sensor here and a drive shaft sensor that will give the driver information on the downforce created by the wing. Where Bill Coolman make me taking guesses, this team is basing everything on figures. At this point, do you believe that these 80-inch rear decks are going the wrong way? Do you think the cars need that much downforce, or are they getting it?
Well, yeah, if I thought the rear decks were a better way, I would have done it, but the most efficient method of controlling air is with a wing, and spent a lot of time in wind tunnels over the years, and wings are very efficient methods to improve downforce, as you've seen on the top fuel cars. So a wing is a better method to control downforce and drag and lift. So if you can calculate your lift to drag ratio and know what you want or know what you think you need, then a wing would be the device I would use.
Ever since Bill Coolman put the first really big wing on a door slammer on his first 200 mile per hour car, the most common way to get downforce in a pro modified has been through the huge rear deck spoiler. These single plane decks have created a tremendous amount of downforce, and we talked about it, but nobody has created the deck spoilers controversy more so than Scotty Cannon, the man behind the Onsat 40 Chevy. And Scotty, the newest version of the Onsat team car really is one huge deck, isn't it?
Yeah, well, basically it's not quite as long as the other car, but if you look forward toward the back of the window, the whole car works as a deck. Basically, it's like a funny car, trying to just make the body as part of the whole deck as itself.
Now, Bill Coolman has gone back to a short rear deck. Al Billis is using an elevated wing. Everybody seems to think they have the best angle. Do you still believe in these decks as much as you did?
My whole theory is you know, kind of copy what's been done. And if you look at a funny car, they're basically all slick and they're sort of wedge shaped, and they come from the front straight up. And you kind of eyeball our car, it's about as wedge shaped probably as you can make a 40 Chevrolet. But you know, my theory behind the whole deal is if a man wanted to really make a pro modified and make it trick, is take a funny car body, cut the doors off of it, and you'd have a real true wing car.
Well, so far you've seen the three different versions of aerodynamics as far as the back of the cars are concerned right now. The big rear deck, the small rear deck, and the elevated wing. But right now there is no dominant design. Right now everybody is still pretty much even, separated by only a few hundredths of a second. The question is, Bob Varsha, you got more experience in Formula One racing than anybody else on our team. What do you think the advantages are of the elevated wing? Do you think this is something that's going to work out in drag racing?
Well, Brett, I think it always comes down to horsepower. If you've got the horses to pull that wing through the air, you're going to go with it. And I guarantee you, if it works, you can expect to see it on the rest of the field the next time these guys roll off the truck. Formula One may be high-tech, but these guys give up nothing to anybody when it comes to technology. Now here is Bill Coolman, who's already made the changes on his car. You already got a look at Robbie Vandergriff, who will be his opponent. There's Vandergriff. This is supposed to be a 57 Chevrolet, and this was a very controversial car in terms of aerodynamics as well, Ted.
They've called it a Studebaker, and obviously he's designing that in a wind tunnel too, as the innovation continues to roll on in this pro-modified category.
Wow, we've got a lot of smoke in the right lane for Bill Coolman's car. It looks like he's got a problem, and he gets a little sideways on the racetrack as Vandergriff drives away.
Vandergriff with a 697, 200.12 miles per hour. Let's look at Coolman. That smoke probably put some oil down, and he gets completely out of shape right now and does the wisest thing. He lifts.
Well, it's been a tough season thus far for Bill Coolman. Our fourth matchup will pit Scotty Cannon in the near lane up against Canadian Al Billis.
Al Billis right now, without doubt, the leader in technology in Pro Modify, with a computer that is giving him a whole raft of information.
Cannon, the number 2 qualifier. Billis, already a winner this year, the number 7 qualifier. This should be a good matchup. From high above Thunder Valley, you see the cars launch. Billis gets a little squirrely on the left. They are about even at mid-track. This is a drag race, and I think Cannon wins.
Wow, Cannon pulls it out at the very last minute with a 6.99, 197 miles per hour. Watch the high gear charge now for Scotty Cannon as he pulls the Linko into high gear, and that's what won the race for him.
Well, count that first round then against the exposed rear wing of Al Villas. Robbie Vandergrift will have lane choice over Ronnie Sox in the next round. Scotty Cannon will have lane choice against Wally Stroop. It is a warm and humid day here in Bristol, Tennessee, but as you can see from the parking lot here in Thunder Valley, we've got a capacity crowd on hand.
Suzuki GSX 1100G. Fly without excess baggage.
George Brett, first base, Kansas City. Barry Larkin, shortstop, Cincinnati. Karen Foster, student, Boston. Larry Cohen, dentist, Chicago.
Ever since Major League Baseball introduced the authentic diamond collection of clothing and equipment identical to the pros, it's gotten a lot harder to tell the players from the fans. The authentic diamond collection, a part of baseball you can call your own.
Right through the tub and stir it around. Taste the grease and grime right out of town. When you have the tub of stain and it's giving you a pain, sip it off, sip it off.
The Suzuki Dual Sport 350S cleans up on any surface.
There are different tests of human endurance. In auto racing, it's the 24 Hours of Le Mans. See the finish tomorrow morning at 9:30 Eastern live on ESPN. Indy 500 winner Rick Mears and rival Michael Andretti have battled wheel to wheel all season. Watch them go at it again at the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200, live Sunday at 4 Eastern on ESPN.
Welcome back to Bristol, Tennessee in the IHRA Speed Pro Loctite Spring Nationals on a warm and muggy day. Heck, even Jim Blakely needs to sit down every now and then. We move on to quarterfinal action now in Pro Stock. And in the foreground, the somewhat damaged Pontiac Trans Am of John Noble.
Well, during the night of fire, Noble had just a little bit of an encounter with the guardrail there. Nothing major, but he had to put a little bit of Band-Aid on the front of it.
And here is his opponent. One of the hottest runners in Pro Stock this year. From Kermit, West Virginia, Doug Kirk.
Well, the Kirk Trucking Company Special has a 740 cubic inch Pontiac engine. Noble running 738 cubic inches of Pontiac power.
And believe it or not, those are two of the smallest engines in the class. The smallest is Billy Ewing's 632 cubic inch Olds power plant. This is mountain motor country, folks. It'll be John Noble against Doug Kirk. Kirk involved in that incredible crash during the Budweiser Night of Fire involving John Montecalvo. They launch. Good start for both cars. Looks like Kirk has the advantage of half track, and he takes it.
Doug Kirk with a 733, 190 miles per hour, only a 0.1 reaction time, so the kid is sharp on the lights today.
Speaking of sharp on the lights, one of the quickest starters in Pro Stock competition comes out of the bleach box, Harold Denton from Middlesex, North Carolina, in the Party Time Trans Am. In the far lane, his opponent, third in the Pro Stock World Championship last year, Tim Neighbors from Lawrenceville, Georgia.
Neighbors qualified number 11 in the field in his 91 Camaro, and Harold Denton qualified number 14.
Denton is packing one of the biggest engines in the class, 747 cubic inches, and that was either a great start or a red light for Tim Neighbors, but he shuts it down. I think he knows he fouled.
He red lighted, yes he did. So Harold Denton with a 734, 189 miles per hour. He's going to be heard from. Let's take one more look now at that red light start. You see Neighbors lead. There's the red light on. Easy win for Denton. As a matter of fact, this started the red light problems, Bob.
In fact, 3 of the 4 semifinal matchups decided by red lights. To the right of your screen, Harold Robinson trips the light early against Steve Williford. And in our final matchup, Billy Ewing from Snellville, Georgia, also on the right of your screen, trips up against Ricky Smith. So we look to the elapsed times of those who got down the course legally. Steve Williford will have lane choice against Doug Kirk in the semifinals. Ricky Smith will have lane choice against Harold Denton.
This
two jugs are filled with two completely different types of racing fuel. In this jug is racing methanol, the most common fuel used in the pro alcohol funny car ranks. This jug, however, is filled with ethanol, and there's a huge difference between the two. The racing methanol alcohol is a petroleum-based product that is refined. Ethanol is distilled from corn, believe it or not, and as far as corrosive qualities go, methanol, of course, can pretty much do damage to anything, while the corn-based product really is actually safe to drink. It's pure corn mash. It's corn liquor. That's all it is. And Mark Thomas finds it a superior fuel to the racing alcohol used by everybody else in the class. He says it builds a little bit more engine temperature, but he also thinks it's worth a few more horsepower. And that's why the Ethanol Performs Daytona does just that.
Thanks for bringing it up, Brett. We'll have the alcohol funny cars when we return to Thunder Valley in Bristol, Tennessee. Stay with us.
You know, people say to me, Sonny, you're rich, handsome, and talented, and I say, au contraire, I'm not rich. That's why I got the new coupon book available from any choice hotel like Econo Lodge, Roadway, and Friendship. It could save you over $1,000 at places like Pizza Hut, Alamo Rent-A-Car, and theme parks. Call now, because they've got yours, babe.
Call 1-800-4CHOICE.
A mild case of athlete's foot is one thing. A really tough case, that's something else. The irritating itch, the painful cracking, the burning. That's when you want a medicine that acts tough. Tough-actin Tenactin. Tenactin cures even the tough cases of athlete's foot fungus. And Tenactin's clinically proven. No wonder it's the antifungal most recommended by pharmacists. So when you've got a tough case of athlete's foot, get the medicine that acts tough. Tough-actin Tenactin.
What does it take to be a mountain man? Let's see. A mountain man must be fearless, sure-footed, willing to answer the call of the wild. But most of all, a mountain man should be thirsty for a smooth bush beer or an easy drinking bush light. So, head for the mountains and see if you have what it takes to be a real mountain man.
Welcome back to a warm and sunny day here in the mountains of northeastern Tennessee, Bristol, Tennessee, the site of Thunder Valley. In alcohol funny cars, we'll pick up the action in the semifinals. In the near lane, number 1, the 1990 IHRA alcohol funny car world champion, Mark Thomas out of Louisville, Ohio.
Well, that's the Ethanol Performs car that Brett just told us about, the corn-powered machine.
And his opponent, Scott Weiss out of Richmond, Virginia.
Scott in a 1990 Grand Prix using a 528 Keith Black engine. Mark Thomas using a 526 cubic inch Keith Black engine in an 87 Dodge Daytona body.
Of course, drag racers everywhere are mourning the recent passing of legendary engine builder Keith Black after a long battle with cancer out in California. Up come the RPM in these alcohol-burning machines. Weiss is staged to the left. Thomas is staged. They're away. Good start for Weiss as he bounces those front wheels, and he's going to have to lift.
Mark Thomas picks up an easy win with a 6.42, 221 miles per hour. Let's look one more time at Scott Weiss coming off that concrete pad, the car jumping up and down, doing little mini wheel stands. He finally just had to lift and shut it down in the interest of safety.
Now here is Larry Dobbs in the Cardiac Kids Pontiac Trans Am. We can't pass up this opportunity to show you one of the best races of the weekend. In the far lane, fellow Canadian Doug Hearsom. This was in the first round. Watch these two guys go to the line.
There was only 1/1000th of a second difference after considering reaction time in this run you just saw. We're going to look at it now frame by frame and show you the difference between 221 and 215 miles per hour. Watch Dobbs pass in literally the last 3 feet.
Incredible drag race, and we expect even better stuff now as Terry Mullins gets a launch. Looks like Larry Dobbs had a little trouble in the far lane. Mullins will drive away as Dobbs struggles to get that car under control.
Mullins with a 6.37, 219 miles per hour. He'll move into the final round against Mark Thomas.
Here's another look. Watch the right lane, and you'll see Larry Dobbs get almost sideways, gets off the center line, and has to lift. By virtue of 5/100ths of a second in better ET, Terry Mullins will have lane choice against Mark Thomas in the Alcohol Funny Car Final. Now let's move on to join Brett Kepner in the latest edition of our Hot Rod Shop.
Gentlemen, on today's edition of Hot Rod Workshop, we're going to explain to you how you can get into an 8-second, 160-mile-per-hour car in IHRA drag racing, but not for what you might expect, $50,000 or $80,000. Believe it or not, this particular machine, Phil Molsky's incredible Ford-powered front-engine dragster, has won national events on the IHRA trail for a total package that comes in at less than $10,000. Now, the key to doing this is the chassis of this particular machine. You can look through the drag racing trade papers and find yourself an old front-engine, top-fuel, or top-gas dragster chassis, sometimes for as little as $500 or $600, that'll still pass the safety inspection. Then you pick up a set of used tires and put together a very mild engine with the cost of exhaust headers and a carburetor and a decent manifold, little cylinder head work. You can still keep this whole package in at less than 10 grand for a year's worth of trouble-free racing. Phil Molsky travels all over the country with this thing and rarely experiences a failure.
I spend a little bit extra putting stuff together that would make it last a little bit longer instead of making more power. And that costs a little bit more money, but in the long run, I don't beat up parts.
I got to ask you where you found this particular chassis.
A friend of mine up north, he was running the thing, and he parked it in the garage, had an old Alky motor in it, and he decided to get rid of it finally. I got the dust off it and brought it home.
How much did you pay for it?
$1,200.
So that was obviously a steal because the thing's still a good, safe, solid chassis.
Yeah, it is. I've done a little bit of updating work. I put a new cage on it last year, and you know, just making sure it's safe. I go over it every winter, make sure everything's in one piece, and it usually is.
Obviously, one concern of anybody in drag racing is parts attrition. They think they're going to spend double the cost of the car when they break parts. How much do you break annually a year in a dollar figure?
Well, knock on wood, I ain't broke anything yet.
So you're looking at a car for less than 10 grand. You can travel around the country, and all you got to do is tune it every once in a while, put gas and oil in it?
And put gas in the motorhome. That takes more.
So there you have it. Phil Molsky has a national event winning combination in the quickest of all the rod categories, the 890 quick rod division, for less than 10 grand. And like he said, it costs more to get to the race than he spends when he does get there. Like I said, with a little scrounging ability, keeping an eye in the trade papers for the greatest bargains, and when it comes to older chassis and equipment, you can get right in the thick of things for a lot less money than you thought. That's this week's Hot Rod Workshop.
All right, thanks, Fred. Boy, that looked like something out of Don Garlett's Museum of Drag Racing in Ocala, Florida. We'll be back with semifinal action in all of our classes at the IHRA Speed Pro Loctite Spring National.
Do you know what open-end mutual funds are?
The Wall Street Journal Guide to Understanding Money and Markets tells you in clear, simple English.
Do you know how to spot trends in stocks?
And what stock options are?
And zero coupon bonds?
And the difference between Treasury bills and Treasury notes?
Everything you want to know about the sometimes baffling world of money and investing is in this remarkable 120-page book. And now it's yours free when you subscribe to the Wall Street Journal. Call now and you can have 13 weeks of the Wall Street Journal and this valuable 120-page Guide to Understanding Money and Markets. That's 13 weeks of the journal for the news and ideas you need every business day. And this guide free, which tells you everything you want to know about money and markets, all for only $37, a 24% savings off the newsstand price. Call now, toll-free, 800-642-7400. That's 800-642-7400 for today's Wall Street Journal.
Welcome back to Bristol International Dragway in Bristol, Tennessee. We're ready for semifinal action in Top Fuel, and here comes the snowman, Gene Snow.
Snow hailing from Fort Worth, Texas, running a 500 cubic inch Teeth Black engine, two-time IHRA world champion, up against Diesel John.
Killing mosquitoes all the way down to that 60-foot mark. Diesel John Carey, trucking company owner from Dover, Delaware. In his 50s now, but still able to get it done. And it's all reactions in drag racing. His opponent, Gene Snow, is no spring chicken either. Snow has been in 16 IHRA Top Fuel finals and has won 14 of them. There you see the Snowman in his new sponsorship livery this year.
Well, that sponsorship caused the car to change colors from black and white to red and white. Mopar Performance Parts and Williams Telecommunications. John Carey, on the other hand, sponsored by the Race Against Drugs program. This car has, as most top fuelers do, an onboard computer. Let's take a look now at Snow downloading that computer. It spits out probably 50 different pieces of information. And when Snow makes a run, we're going to watch the car go down, bearing in mind that the computer is measuring some very important things on board that car.
Down comes the visor as the Snowman gets set to go to work. There you see John Carey in his race against drugs livery. Lots of visible exhaust from those headers in this very humid air in Thunder Valley. Good launch for both cars, but Carey goes up in smoke in the far lane.
An easy win for Gene Snow at 5:33, 242 miles per hour. We want to take another look at this run because we want to watch not only Carey, I bet his computer tells him exactly what happened, lots of smoke, but watch Snow. Look at the two black marks behind the car. That indicates tire spin. We'll take a look at his computer now and we'll show you where that's important. First of all, the G-force is pulled. When he leaves the line, look at the G's jump up to 4 G's as the run progresses down. You can see where the parachute opens and he goes to a negative 4 G's. Now let's look at engine RPM. Watch the engine. It's up at about 4,000 RPMs and abruptly jumps to 7,000 RPMs. Stutters there just a bit, and at the end of the run, 5.3 seconds, you'll see the engine start to fall down as he hits the kill switch. Here's the important one. The drive shaft RPM is going to indicate tire spin. Now look, it's down at about 1,000 RPMs. See the tire spin there at just under 1 second? Each time you see a little bump on that graph, that indicates the back tires are spinning slightly up at 7,000 RPMs at 5.3 seconds. Of course, it falls back off.
Well, with that information, Gene Snow will go back and try to readjust clutch and engine settings for the next run. There is the radical aerodynamic setup for King Kenny Bernstein. Crew Chief Dale Armstrong and the crew looking on. As they prepare for their run in the semifinals of Top Fuel, they'll be going up against the Cinderella story right there in the black car, Robert Reel from Anaconda, California, who knocked off Eddie Hill in the first round. Good leads for both cars, but smoke from the near lane. Reel's day is done. Kenny Bernstein will meet Gene Snow.
Bernstein just keeps on coming. A 5:24, 264 miles per hour to advance into the finals,
where he will have lane choice over Gene Snow in a matchup of former world champions. And we move on to semifinal action in Pro Modified. Here comes Wally Stroop in the Lawson and Stroop Chevrolet Beretta. Number 1 in World Championship points coming in. He's been getting closer and closer to that 200-mile-an-hour barrier. In the left lane, his opponent, Scotty Cannon, in that red and yellow, wild-looking 40 Chevy.
The thing on Wally Stroop's mind right now has to be Scotty Cannon's previous round run of 6.99. Stroop has not been in the sixes yet. He's got to be worried a lot about that.
The whole story in drag racing is who gets there first. You can go 500 miles an hour down the strip if you want to, but you've got to get there ahead of the other guy. We've seen some great high gear charges today, and this looks like another great matchup. Wally Stroop had a shot at the all-time Pro Mod ET and speed records in our most recent round at Atco, New Jersey, but he wasn't able to back it up. Now he goes up against one of the toughest cars in the class, Scotty Cannon. Cannon stages, they are away. Good start for Stroop on the right of your screen. Cannon lifts the front wheels and drives around him. Very close, but Cannon takes it.
Wow, what a race. Scotty Cannon, 7:01, 196 miles per hour. So he actually slowed down just a little bit. We'll look one more time at it. You'll see the top end charge. It's nose to nose. You can throw a blanket over the pair of them. Now all of a sudden, Cannon shifts to high gear, pulls it out by half a car length.
Going to be tough to beat that matchup, but here comes Ronnie Sox in the far lane up against Rob Vandergriff in that radical Chevy in only the second race for this car.
This is the battle of the shoeboxes, a 64 Mercury Comet against a 57 Chevy.
From high above the start line, the RPMs come up. Ronnie Sox gets a little bit sideways off the launch. Pretty straight run for Vandergriff. Let's watch him to the line. Wow, Ronnie Sox loses out by the narrowest of margins to Rob Vandergriff.
You're not going to believe this, Bob. Rob Vandergriff, a 7:03 with a 6. Ronnie Sox, a 7:03 with a 7.
And this place is going bonkers. These folks know a good drag race when they see one, and it doesn't get any closer than this.
The reaction time for both, .147. This has got to be the closest race in the history of NHRA, and right there it is. Look at this, frame by frame. That's what 1/1000th of a second looks like on top end.
You're looking at a situation where you both left the starting line at exactly the same time. You went 7:03.6. You went 7:03.7. 1,000th of a second between you.
I know, it's because he was right there at the end. I mean, I couldn't tell. Neither one of us could tell who won.
That was the drag race.
That was the drag. They didn't like that one. They're not going to like it, right?
I got to tell you, we are a little bit more than a third of a mile away from the finish line, let alone the fans, and we could hear them roaring down here.
I'll tell you what, that's absolutely the best race I've ever had in my life. But this guy's the toughest guy I've ever raced, so.
Well, by 24 1,000ths of a second, Robbie Vandergrift gives up lane choice to Scotty Cannon in the Pro Modified final. That should be a great race. Ready now for semifinal action in Pro Stock. Our first matchup will feature Steve Williford in the car that took Tommy Mooney to the Pro Stock Championship last year, up against this man, the Oldsmobile of Doug Kirk.
Kirk hails from Kermit, West Virginia, and he's actually one of those second-generation drag racers. Carl Kirk got him started driving.
Kirk's second in the championship last year to Tommy Mooney, and once again in the car that Steve Williford is driving. Ironic twist here in the semifinals at the IHRA Spring Nationals. Kirk comes to the staging lanes. Now Williford's there. Up come the RPM. They are away. Good start for Williford, who gets a little sideways under power, but he's got a car length over Kirk and will hold it to the finish.
Williford with a 7.34 ET. Kirk had a quicker 7.30, so he was out of the box first. Look how big a hole shot this is for Williford. You see the car lift way early and leave the line. That's a 0.02 reaction time. Now look at the difference on top end. Kirk had a 0.113 reaction time and was a full 0.04 of a second quicker.
Well, speaking of quick starts in the near lane, the master, Ricky Smith, up against Harold Denton. No slouch himself. Good lead for Denton. I think he got Ricky Smith off the line, and you don't see that very often. Denton wins.
It's going to be reaction time again. Denton with a 7.37. Ricky with a quicker 7.33. Watch this hole shot. Wow. Did he catch Ricky asleep or what? Not really. Denton cut an unrealistic 0.004. Unheard of. He probably took a shot on the tree.
I don't think anybody was more stunned there than Ricky Smith, but the old guy comes through.
Well, the thing about it is some days you got a day and some days you don't, and I think it's our day. Thank you, and I appreciate it.
The fact that you attributed this one to Jim, you know Jim Ruth is loving it.
I know it, and he knows what we're doing.
I know. Thanks.
And so Harold Denton and the crew will ready for the final in Pro Stocks. Steve Williford will have lane choice against Harold Denton. That car, the racetrack, and the sanctioning body, once owned by the late Jim Ruth, the entire weekend has been dedicated to his memory. We'll be back to Bristol for the finals.
1985, 86, 87, 88, 89. For 6 straight years, the full-size pickup from GMC Truck has retained more of its original value than any other in America. That's why sales of the Sierra are growing faster than any other full-size pickup. And we intend to keep it that way in 1991 with these new Sierras. And in 92, GMC Truck. It's not just a truck anymore. It's quality on the road.
It's one of the most technologically advanced, most rigorously tested fluids on Earth, relentlessly measured for maximum protection against the friction, the wear and tear, the heat and stress of today's engines. It is today's Quaker State. In Europe, in Japan, in America, Quaker State quality has passed the most demanding tests automakers can throw at it. At Quaker State, we don't just say we're tough, we're tested tough. The big Q is one tough motor oil.
The resurgent Dave Winfield of the Angels is showing he still has some pop left in his back. He'll face the home run power of Cecil Fielder and the Tigers, live at 8 Eastern on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball.
It is somewhat ironic that this particular Pro Modified final would come down to these two cars. Scotty Cannon's incredible 1940 Chevrolet has, of course, been one of the proponents of that incredible, radical aerodynamic restyling. But standing right over here, Robbie Vandergrift with the Soft Seal 57 Chevrolet. You remember just a few weeks ago at the recent Eastern Nitrous Nationals, also debuted his most radical piece yet. Inside the cockpit, indeed, the crew is thrashing just to get the clutch setting right, but you got to remember that this man has already run several 690s in a row, so you've got to be pretty happy with the way it is right now.
Yeah, you know, considering the heat and everything else, we're very, very happy.
Now, you and Cannon have been knocking off solid 90s or low O's all day long, and this could be the closest race of the day, even though after the one you just went through.
If they're any closer than that last one, I don't want them.
They can't be any closer than that last one. 1/1000th of a second. We are ready for the finals in Top Fuel, and here comes the two-time world champion, Gene Snow, boiling the tires down to the 60-foot mark. Get that rubber up to racing temperature. And here comes the radical new aerodynamic package over the wheel wells and the rear parachute mount of Kenny Bernstein.
Well, this could be a real race of the day right here. Snow ran a 5:27, then he ran a 5:33. Bernstein ran a 5:18, but slowed in the last round when he defeated Robert Reel to a 5:24.
Kenny Bernstein, #1 in IHRA World Championship points coming in. Gene Snow missed a round earlier this year, and he really needs to make up ground on the championship. Nothing would do it more for him than a victory here.
Both drivers having input from their onboard computers from the previous round, but I'll bet you Kenny Bernstein has more input. He may even have 2 or 3 computers on board since he owns the company, Racepack Computers.
Could be a case of Kenny Bernstein sold me all the computer technology I need, but he didn't sell me all the computer technology he has. Now Kenny's a fair and square racer, and he breaks right off the starting line. Gene Snow has the horses today, and he wins for the first time this year.
Gene Snow, consistent 5.39, 244, and I believe we saw a blower belt come off that car and bounce. Let's take one more look at it as it leaves the starting line. Keep your eyes on the blower belt.
Right at the front of the engine, as Kenny puts his foot in it, whammo, it comes off like a broken rubber band.
Of course, the race was over at that point. Nothing King Kenny can do right now except wonder what happened and pull off to the side of the track. That's because he's not sure what happened. He thinks he may be dripping oil.
I saw him out of the corner of my eye there, and all of a sudden he was gone. I said, must have smoked the tires. It was a blower belt.
That's all it was. He pulled it off. Incredible sportsmanship. He pulled it right over to the wall in case it was oiling. It was amazing. But the man's luck here is pathetic. Yours is incredible. 5:39.
It's about time we got some luck. I'm just proud to be here. It's great to win here. We've done it several times, and really proud to do it for Mopar and Williams Telecommunication, Amelie, and all the folks that really help us. Thanks a lot, Brad.
And so Kenny Bernstein will have to wait for another drag race here at Thunder Valley to get that first victory. We move on to Pro Modified. There you see the radical 40 Willies of Scotty Cannon, and there in only its second national event, Rob Vandergrift's 57 Chevy. Well, you can bet the Chevrolet brothers could have never dreamed that someday their names would be on creations like these.
You know, this is a very equal matchup. Vandergrift ran a 6.97 in the second round, slowed to a 7.03. Cannon in the onset car ran a 6.99 and slowed to a 7.01.
Cars come to the line. Vandergrift stages. Cannon will creep forward to stage. The lights are on and we are away. Good start for Scotty Cannon, but the car porpoises a little bit. Still, he keeps his foot in it and drives away.
Scotty Cannon with the best reaction time and the best TT. 7 flat at 196 mile an hour. Vandergrift slowed to a 7.06. Watch one more time. Cannon was out first with a .124 reaction time, and all he does is make the lead larger and larger. Let's go to top end with Brett.
Well, a few teams that has a crew been waiting for you down here. 7 flat to 7.06, and I got to tell you that Vandergrift left first. You didn't leave first many times today, guy.
We got this new AFT clutch in here, and we've been working on it. I got it going down the track, but I cannot get a lot.
Well, you had the horsepower to outrun everybody.
I'd like to thank my sponsors, my dad, and my wife. Is anybody left out? Boyce, my crew chief, #1. He's doing his job. Thanks to everybody. My grandfather, he's #1.
So as we don't mislead anyone, for the record, Scotty Cannon did have the quicker reaction time over Robbie Vandergrift. We move on now to Pro Stock and the Party Time Black Trans Am of Harold Denton. 747 cubic inches of Pontiac power. His opponent in this round, this man, Steve Williford, his engine, 747 cubic inch Pontiac, the 2 biggest engines in the class.
Well, this is the kid and the old man. Remember, this is the rookie year for Steve Williford in driving a Pro Stock race car, whereas Harold Denton has been driving Pro Stockers almost since the class was invented.
Denton is staged. In the near lane, Williford is staged. Williford looks like he got a great start, but he red lights. Just when he needed a great reaction time, Steve Williford tried to jump the tree on Harold Denton, and he fouls.
Tenn wins with a 7:33, 188 miles per hour. Let's look one more time at that red light start. It's unusual. Williford actually raises the car up out of the lights. Now watch Williford's side of the lane. You see the ambers come on. Look for the red light and watch the front end of the car not move forward, but rather race straight up out of the beams and then begin moving forward to turn on the red light. An unusual red light situation, handing Harold Denton the win. He talked with Brett Kepner on Top End.
You know what was said earlier? This was for Jim Root. He meant more to me than anybody, I guess, ever could have in drag racing. But, you know, to a lot of people, he meant a lot of things. But
all of us. I mean, he was the president of our association.
He was something that anybody could be proud to be associated with. And through the years, we really got to be good friends. And to lose him meant a lot to everybody. But naturally, almost to me, it was family. But I said, if there's anything I could like to do, it'd be race this year and win for Jim. So that one's for Jim.
And we will move on to the final in alcohol funny cars, matching a petroleum-based alcohol machine of Terry Mullins up against this man, the defending class champion, Mark Thomas from Louisville, Ohio, with that corn-distilled, ethanol-powered alcohol funny car.
Terry Mullins from Oak Ridge, Tennessee, near Knoxville, in a 91 Cutlass body car with 540 cubic inches of Keith Black power against Thomas's Dodge Daytona body car at only 526 cubic inches of Keith Black power.
There's Mark Thomas with that big white number 1 on the side, symbolic of the class champion. Up come the RPMs. Alcohol burns very cool, and the cars can run at high RPM for some time without overheating. They are staged it away. Looks like Terry Mullins got the jump. Thomas is bouncing up and down, but he keeps his foot in it. What a race!
Very close at the top end. It is Mark Thomas, 6.29, 224 miles per hour. Look at the whole shot by Terry Mullins, a 0.66 reaction time to Thomas's 0.122. As they get the half track now, they're dead even. But you see Thomas pull ahead with the higher mile-an-hour charge to take the race by about 2 feet at top end. We'll look one more time at a frame by frame, and you can see more clearly how much Thomas won this race by.
And so Mark Thomas picks up the victory in pursuit, defending his IHRA Alcohol Funny Car World Championship. His crew absolutely bonkers. Back at the starting line, as drag racing crews typically are after all of that work, they've got a victory to show for it. We'll be right back.